Hi guys, so before we begin, we wanted to tell you a little bit about the Forever Twilight and Forks Festival that we're going to in September. This is a festival that takes place every single year in Forks, Washington. It's a ton of Twilight fans coming together and celebrating their love for Twilight in such a safe and lovely and fun environment.
Yeah, and it is September 10th through the 13th, and we will be there actually doing a live show on Sunday. So
Yes.
if you want to meet up, we'll be there. And if you want to hear more, we did 2 episodes about the festival back in our archives, so
Yes.
you can listen to that.
Take a listen because it was quite an experience, and we are so excited to go back, and we hope that we can see you guys there. If you're interested and want to learn more, you can go to our old episodes, or you can go to forkswa/forevertwilightandforks.com to buy tickets. And you can reach out if you have any questions about the festival, and we'd be happy to help answer them.
I can't believe we're going back.
I know. Guys, it's like Twilight camp. It is so much fun.
It is.
It's
crazy.
A once-in-a-lifetime experience, and it brought so much happiness to myself that I didn't even know was there, and it overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically a Twilight party.
Yeah.
So anyway, without further ado, here's the episode.
Hey guys, before the episode begins, I just want to do a little content warning that we talk about themes of suicide and death, so if that's something you're sensitive to, you might want to be careful listening to this episode.
It's our first day of shooting. We picked the most difficult set ever. Smoke, mirrors in every direction. Love it. Welcome to Twilight.
You're listening to Another Bite of Twilight, a podcast where we look back on our obsession with the Twilight Saga and continue to freak out 10 years later.
How old are you?
17.
How long have you been 17?
A while.
If this is about my soul, take it. I don't want it without you.
It's not about your soul.
But we'll always be this, frozen. Never moving forward.
He believes this is our afterlife. That in exchange for this limited immortality.
I'm not gonna end your life for you.
I'm dying. Already. Every second I get closer. Older.
It's the way it's supposed to be.
Even if I am damned regardless.
Damned. Like hell. Carlia, you couldn't be damned. You couldn't. It's impossible.
Imagine the situation in reverse. If you believed as Edward does, could you take away his soul?
What's up? I'm Kelly.
I'm Mel.
And welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to our podcast. If you're new, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you find a nice home and community here with us talking about Twilight.
If you love Twilight,
If you hate it, if you've seen the movie once, no matter
saw the trailer one time,
who you are, this is the podcast for you.
if you read a Wikipedia description and just kind of skimmed it and then clicked on another link.
If you've never, ever heard about it at all, like my boss, somehow.
That's crazy.
Is that a book? Right? Yeah.
I find that really strange, but I also slightly admire it. Like, how has she been able to live under her own rock for so long?
I think she doesn't consume any media.
Really?
Besides some
Does she
media.
live on a farm or something?
No, she just, like,
Guys,
doesn't...
if you live on a farm, I'm not saying you don't consume media.
Gosh, I'm so afraid that someday she'll discover this and, like, listen to me talk about her. No, she does sometimes. I'll sometimes find out that she's obsessed with the show, and I'm like, wait, what? I thought you didn't watch TV. And she's like, oh, yeah, but I watch the show. So
What show?
Dairy Girls, she watched
she
all of.
watches
I
that?
was
Cool.
shocked. Or she
Wow.
loves, like, Shark Tank.
Oh, I have to watch more Dairy Girls.
Yeah.
Shark Tank, that's random.
Yeah, but I can picture it for her. Dairy Girls, I was not expecting at all. But I definitely gained some respect for her when she said that.
I'm gonna watch more.
Yeah, we can watch it together. It's
we should.
It's so easy to watch the whole thing in one day.
We should.
It takes only like 4 hours.
It's like girls. That's what I always said to people.
Yeah.
First season takes 5 hours.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. Guys, you should watch Dairy Girls if you haven't seen it. It's so good. This is a Dairy Girls podcast now.
No. Okay, so today we're discussing something we've been hinting at discussing for a long time.
Yes. Today we're talking about mortality and immortality in the Twilight series.
Life and death, you could say.
Life and death. Yeah. I almost feel like maybe we should have covered this after we finish it, but
that's okay.
I feel like there must be such stronger, more apparent themes of mortality in that book, and that's why it's called that.
Maybe.
Because it's like, see, once you switch the genders, you realize that this is more about mortality than it is about gender dynamics.
But Twilight was never about gender dynamics. People are just putting
People
that
projected
on
it, and that's why I feel like she's like, Bella's only fragile because she's human, not because she's a girl.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's actually life and death.
That's true.
Yeah, I feel like that's why they did that, because it's like, they're equals, they're not equals because he's immortal, she's mortal.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you switch
it's a coincidence.
Yes.
That she's a girl and
Yeah,
he's a
they
guy.
just so happen to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but we'll see when we read it, which we haven't done yet.
So, mortality.
So I actually wanted to do this podcast a year ago, because it was like one of those phases for me where I was thinking about death all the time. Like, I was so afraid of it. Do you ever go through those phases where, like, you keep thinking? I feel like lately I've been feeling that way again ever since, like, Kobe Bryant died. And, like, people just, like, talk about, like, now is all we have. Every day is a gift. And, like, I think that's so true. But
Now is all we have. That's me.
No, I think that's so true. But when people start saying, like, be blessed for every single day, like, yes, but it also scares me so much that I obsess over it to, like, no end, where it's, like, almost, like, not productive.
Me too.
So last year I really want to talk about it. We, like, our aunt had passed away, and, like, I just was thinking about it constantly, and, like, I couldn't stop. But then you go through these phases in life where, like, it doesn't even occur to you that you're gonna die someday.
I know. Yeah, there's times where I can't stop thinking about how everyone in my life might die, and it stresses me out too, thinking about people who I don't really talk to anymore, but I still care about. And then I'm like, what if they die?
Yeah, I do that too.
That really stresses me.
And then I'm like, I should reach out, and then I do, and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't.
Yeah,
I should tell them I love them.
I actually texted someone once, being like, I think I had a dream that they died, and I was all upset, and was like, I just want you to know, like, I still care about you or something, and they were like, okay. Yeah,
and I'm like, fuck that, I wish I didn't do that.
It's very strange to me. It was also like at 5 in the morning. Yeah, like, it's always there.
Yeah.
It's looming death.
It's gonna happen to all of us, and I feel like except vampires, yeah.
And
but
Jacob.
But the thing about the Twilight vampires, which I was gonna say later, is they can die.
It's true.
So are they really truly immortal? We'll get into it, I guess, because
we'll get into it.
Even though they can live forever, they also can die, and I feel like the assumption is someday they will die themselves, because the world is not going to last forever.
Yeah.
Like, are they going to outlast the world? I don't think so.
Outwit, outlast, outplay.
As long as mortals are around, they can survive. But can they? Will they die if they don't ever thirst?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
If they have no one to drink from.
Yeah. What would happen? They'd probably all kill themselves.
I wish that was addressed.
Yeah.
How can they all kill themselves, though? One person be left.
Yeah, one person kills all of them.
And then that guy is just...
Yeah, I don't know what.
Can they die if they run into a fire? I know it's like rip their heads off and burn the pieces, but
Can they rip their own heads off?
it's a good point.
I bet they
bet
could.
you could set up a guillotine thing and like pull a string.
Oh gosh, this is so dark.
I'm sorry. Why didn't Edward think of that?
Yeah, that would have been way easier than flying all the way to Italy.
I feel like Edward didn't truly want to die.
I agree. I think a lot of times, maybe this is ignorant of me, nobody truly wants to die.
That's what they say, like psychologists and stuff.
Yeah.
That it's like against our nature. Even if you do, they say that when you like start to, your body's like, no.
Yeah, people. Yeah. This is so dark right out of the.
It is really dark.
Gate.
Minute 7.
Yeah, people, like generally, like if they like attempt suicide or something, people who have survived that often say that they had regretted it just as they started.
Yeah. I'm sorry, this is really dark.
Yeah, sorry.
And I hope this isn't upsetting anybody, and please message us if it does.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's true. And it relates to Twilight because there are a lot of suicidal themes in Twilight, actually.
Yeah.
Especially New Moon.
Suicidal, or even just like there's a fear of death and then mixed with no fear whatsoever.
Yeah.
Especially on Bella's part. It's like this weird dichotomy that like never really even exists at the same time. It's like hard to grasp like what Bella truly wants.
Bella
sometimes
really doesn't seem afraid of dying.
Yeah. Well,
she wants to live forever, but she also seems more concerned about other people dying than herself.
Yeah.
Or can you think of a time where she was concerned about her own death?
Well, I just think throughout the series, the fact that she like so desperately doesn't want to be mortal shows that she really doesn't want to die. But
I feel like it's more about Edward, though.
Yeah. But even when she is confronted with her own death, she is kind of okay with leaving Edward in those instances. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into that a little bit later. First, we have a letter we want to read. Or did you want to say anything else about mortality? And like your own experience with it?
My own experience with it.
Like how you feel about it.
How I feel. I think about it a lot too. Sometimes I wonder like if death matters as much as we think it does. Possibly it doesn't. I don't know. We don't know what happens.
Yeah. What do you think happens? Is that too deep a question? So early?
I'm open to a lot. I hope. No offense if anyone believes in this. I don't know. I'm not into the idea of reincarnation, so I hope that doesn't happen. If it is, though, I wouldn't even know. And that's the thing that upsets me.
That's the thing that upsets me, too, with reincarnation, is because, like, what is the point?
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't even know, are you...
consciousness, too.
Yeah. Like, someone asked me once, like, what I would want heaven to be like, and I was like, honestly, I want it to be pretty much like Earth, but just happier.
Yeah.
Like, I want to still be conscious. I want to still, like, interact with people who I love. Like, I want it to be, like, literally the same thing as Earth. So I guess that's basically, like, immortality.
Yeah. I would just want it to be Earth, but peace.
Yeah.
Still want there to be Paris, France, readily available to visit.
I want to still eat Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah. I know, I want it to be the same.
Yeah.
Actually, that book that I've been reading, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, he kind of talks about, I don't know, it's a little sad because I don't know if it's ever possible, but he thinks if everyone on Earth became conscious, as he says, or enlightened, which I don't even truly know how to reach that point. He thinks then we would have heaven on Earth. And he thinks that's what, like, Jesus and Buddha and everything we're talking about.
Interesting. So does he think that is what heaven actually is? Or I
think that's what he thinks, yeah.
Oh, so then he thinks that, like, when you die...
I guess.
That's over?
But I don't know. He also believes in, like, souls, I think. And
yeah.
I mean, this is just one guy.
Yeah. I think for my own sake, it's sometimes very hard, realistically, to wrap my brain around, but for my own sake, I have to believe that something beyond my comprehension that's so amazing happens, because when you lose someone, it is so hard to think otherwise. Like, it is, so it's like you kind of, I said this once, I said, you have to, and my friend yelled at me, I was like, you don't have to think anything, and I was like, no, like, for me,
not in that way,
but I was like, sometimes just to feel at peace with losing people, you have to think that there's something greater. And I think it's very, like, on the one hand, I feel like it's more realistic that nothing would happen, but on the other hand, I think, who are we to say that? Because why are we here in the first place? Like, what, like, there's so many things that don't make sense that I think it's like, who's to say? Like, there could be something so much greater, and we are just little humans, and we don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's possible. I mean, that's what Eckhart Tolle kind of talks about too, that like our bodies are just, they're not really who we are, that we're just kind of like using the body for now, but it's not.
That's like the host.
Yeah. Stephanie Meyer.
Oh, I feel like Stephanie Meyer would like this conversation. Stephanie.
Yeah, I would like to talk about this with her.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like she would be so great on Super Soul Sunday. Or Super Soul Conversations. Shouldn't she?
Yeah. I bet she would be awesome.
She would be amazing. Like, I feel like she'd have such deep conversations.
I know.
And I feel like people project their own opinions onto her about her faith, but I don't think that she is really preachy at all. Like, especially in Twilight, she really leaves her characters up to their own interpretations of what happens. They're not all, like, monolithic.
Yeah. She kind of just brings the idea of, like, the things are meant to be or whatever into the story.
Keep
Did I even answer your question? What do I think about it? I don't know. I think about it a lot. I do. I really do.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for answers. I'm always changing my mind a little bit, but not too drastically. But
I feel like it always depends on what's going on in your life, too.
Yeah, probably.
It stresses me out. It's one of those things where it's like, during the day, like, it doesn't even seem that real sometimes. But then, like, even as young as I can remember, being like 5 years old, lying in bed and just like being like, oh my god, I'm gonna die someday. Me, the protagonist of my life.
Helps me to think about my heroes or whatever who are already dead. I'm like, okay, if they did it, I can do it too.
Oh no.
It happens to everyone, though.
It happens, and that's the one truth we all know. And I was even thinking about Alice in this context of, like, we all are in some way can see the future, because we all know that this one thing is going to happen to all of us and everybody else. You know?
We just don't know when.
We don't know when.
We just don't know when. Actually, that relates... Sorry, this ties into something that I wrote down. And I just feel like it might be a good time to say it. This just relates to it. I don't know. I was just doing some research about what other people think about mortality and immortality and stuff. And this was a article written by a man named Paul Saga. And he was just talking about how... Okay, he says, it seems then that both philosophers and pop culture keep trying to tell us the same thing. You might think you want to live forever, but reflection should convince you otherwise. And yet, if this is ultimately true, as philosophers and popular culture seem to want to say that it is, then another question arises: why do we keep needing to be told? Which I think that's true about Twilight. Like, we have Edward always saying, like, you don't want this, you don't want this. And we're going to get into it more, too, like whether immortality would actually be a good thing. But, he says, in the face of it, a desire for immortality most obviously seems to be a response to the fear of death. Most of us are afraid to die. If we were immortal, we could escape both that fear and its object. Hence, it seems a desire for immortality is simply a desire not to die. In the face of it, what philosophers, poets, and novelists remind us is that there are fates worse than death. Immortality might itself turn out to be one of them. And then he kind of goes on to say that... what this means is that there might be, contrary to Scheffler's argument, sorry, I didn't read his argument, but a coherent desire for immortality after all. This is because desiring immortality might not simply be about having a desire to live forever. It might instead be a desire to control when we ourselves will die, choosing to end it all only when and not before we ourselves are ready. So, like, yeah, when people talk about living forever, it's like, oh, it might get boring, whatever, but, like, you want it to get to that point where you're like, okay, yeah, like, I'm bored.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's more the fear of the unknown of what happens.
Yeah.
But that could be even better than what you think could happen. But also with death, most of the time, unless you have a very peaceful death in your sleep, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Like, it could be an accident, Lucas Bella says, or it could be an illness.
Yeah.
Or it could be a murder, whatever it is. Like, it's usually really painful and not fun and sad and scary. So
you don't have control.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
unless, I mean, yeah, some people do kill themselves, but like, as we said, like, even though maybe that's someone trying to take control, it's also, that's not a good experience, and that's not like,
no.
And if your body naturally resists it as it starts to happen, it sounds horrible, actually. So, like, no matter which way you go,
it's usually
going to be hard.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. It's going to be bad.
So
I wrote, so is immortality about control, having agency over one's life? But if there's one truth about life, it's that we can't always control things happen.
That's so true. Even if it's not your own fear of death, it's going to be a fear of something else. Or
Anyway,
because I feel like when people want immortality, it's to escape death, but it's not really necessarily to live forever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because what does that even mean? I have some thoughts about it in context of Twilight.
There's so much to say.
So much, but we should read something from our friend Angel first.
Yeah, so Angel, friend of the pod, we've mentioned her before, just went above and beyond and sent us this essay basically about mortality. And should we take turns reading it?
Yes.
She basically, Angel, oh my god, you basically did the work for us. She has like quotes. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
But her words should be heard, so let's read it.
Yes. Do you want to start?
Okay. I'll read the first paragraph. The Twilight Saga as a whole is very dramatic and emotional and heart-wrenching. Everything about it is life and death, no pun intended. Twilight is, in my opinion, the perfect balance of teen angst and drama with love and passion, plus a healthy dose of humor. Read the books, people. Edward and Bella are both charming and hilarious.
Yes.
New Moon is just a whole lot of barely masked suicidal tendencies. I don't know why I just left that.
Yeah.
Eclipse and Breaking Dawn get more balanced again, so right now I'm mainly going to focus on New Moon. Although, a disclaimer, even though I just said suicidal, which is a very serious issue that gets thrown around a lot these days, with the potential to take that meaning away from the word, I want everyone to keep in mind that there's a spectrum in what it means to experience suicidal feelings. The range of suicidal ideation varies from fleeting thoughts to extensive thoughts to detailed planning. A Wikipedia definition, but this isn't for a class, so don't judge me for using good old wiki. Not judging.
No judgment.
There are times when I think a more appropriate term to describe Bella would be apathetic to death. Yes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that she doesn't fall in the suicidal spectrum. I just want to be clear that I don't believe that Bella is in a constant state of actively wanting to die. More so, it's that she doesn't care if she dies or not.
Yeah.
That is so true. Okay, your turn.
So she says, early on in New Moon, after Edward leaves, there's an evening where Bella goes to the movies with Jessica. She sees a group of men standing outside of a bar, and she starts to approach them instinctively because they remind her of her infamous frat bros who tried to attack her in Twilight but were unsuccessful because Edward rescued her. Jessica asks Bella if she's suicidal, and Bella responds, "No, I'm not." My voice sounded defensive, but it was true. I wasn't suicidal, even in the beginning, when death unquestionably would have been a relief. I didn't consider it. I owed too much to Charlie. I felt too responsible for Renee. I had to think of them. And I'd made a promise not to do anything stupid or reckless. For all those reasons, I was still breathing. Remembering that promise, I felt a twinge of guilt, but what I was doing right now didn't really count. It wasn't like I was taking a blade to my wrist. And then I remember that passage. She goes, like, Jessica said that as a joke, but, like,
oh, yeah.
Jessica was, like, freaked out that she responded like it could be real.
Seriously, yeah. That was chapter 4. Then Angel says, first of all, I just want to mention that if someone out there is struggling with suicidal thoughts, there's nothing wrong with using other people as an excuse to stay alive. I have heard some people say, no, you shouldn't rely on other people because what if they leave you or disappoint you in some other way? You should be doing it for yourself. But that's just not an option for some people, so use whatever you can to make it through a day, a week, a month. Maybe someday you will want to stay alive for you. Secondly, there are infinite ways to self-harm, so saying it wasn't like I was taking a blade to my wrists is a classic way to devalue your behaviors. Thirdly, as stated before, there is a wide variety in what being suicidal can mean. Bella may not be actively planning to kill herself, but let's be honest, she definitely thought about it. It's at this point in New Moon that everyone should be hoping that Bella goes to therapy. Spoiler, she doesn't.
Yeah. Jumping ahead to the cliff diving fiasco, we are treated to such gems as, it was hard not to convince myself that I didn't have time to search for another way. I wanted to jump from the top. This was the image that had lingered in my head. I wanted that long fall that would feel like flying. And that's New Moon, chapter 15. Even the conversation she had with her Edward hallucination right before she jumps, telling him, you wanted me to be human, well, watch me. And her subtle way of saying, humans die, so I'm going to die. Yeah. Which again implies a certain amount of wishing for death. It could be said that she meant it as a as long as I stay human, I will die eventually sort of thing, and that her jumping was not an active suicide attempt, but more of an almost threat to Edward that he should turn her. But either way, it definitely falls on the suicidal spectrum.
After Bella jumps off the cliff, when she's stuck in the water and her Edward hallucination is trying to tell her to keep swimming, she says, I didn't want to fight anymore, and it wasn't the lightheadedness or the cold or the failure of my arms as the muscles gave out in exhaustion that made me content to stay where I was. I was almost happy that it was over. This was an easier death than others I'd faced, oddly peaceful. Hello, this is Suicidal Thoughts 101. How may I help you? I understand that at this point she thinks it's too late and has resigned herself to death, but the fact that she's comparing it to her other near-death experiences tells me she thinks about those deaths a lot, even if it's not in an idolizing type of way. After Bella has been pulled from the water and is safely back at home to find that Alice has also come back into town, they have the following conversation, starting with Bella saying,
You saw me fall. No, she disagreed, her eyes narrowing. I saw you jump. I pursed my lips as I tried to think of an explanation that wouldn't sound nuts. Explanation, as in a lie, as in she has something to hide, which is Angel's commentary. Alice shook her head. I told him this would happen, but he didn't believe me. Bella promised. Her voice imitated him so perfectly that I froze in shock while the pain ripped through my torso. Don't be looking in her future either, she continued to quote him. We've done her enough damage. And then Angel says, so let me get this straight. Alice and presumably other Cullens told Edward that Bella would probably try to kill herself, and Edward was able to convince himself that she'd be fine because she promised not to do anything reckless. What a moron.
Just because I'm not looking doesn't mean I don't see, she went on. I wasn't keeping tabs on you, I swear, Bella. It's just that I'm already attuned to you. When I saw you jumping, I didn't think. I just got on a plane. I knew it would be too late, but I couldn't do nothing. And then I got here thinking maybe I could help Charlie somehow, and you drive up. She shook her head, this time in confusion. Her voice was strained. I saw you go into the water, and I waited and waited for you to come up, but you didn't. What happened? And how could you do that to Charlie? Did you have any idea what Edward...
I cut her off then, as soon as she said his name. I let her go on, even after I realized the misunderstanding she was under. I just had to hear the perfect bell tone of her voice. But it was time to interrupt. Alice, I wasn't committing suicide. She eyed me dubiously. Are you saying you didn't jump off a cliff? No, but... I grimaced. It was for recreational purposes only. And then Angel says, that grimace implies to me that she's not telling the whole truth. Yeah, I agree with that.
Her expression hardened. I'd seen some of Jacob's friends cliff diving, I insisted. It looked like fun. I was bored. She waited. I didn't think about how the storm would affect the currents. Actually, I didn't think about the water much at all. Alice didn't buy it. I could see that she still thought I had been trying to kill myself. Angel says, because you were. I decided to redirect. Because you can't come up with more lies? That was Angel.
Okay, I know that was a lot, but I mean, come on. In what world is Bella actually not trying to die here? Is this an attempt to convince Alice that she didn't want to kill herself, or is she trying to convince herself out of that? Even a little bit later on, when she tells Alice, well, I'm not dead at least, and I survived, I pointed out, it reminds me of the line in the movie of Twilight when Bella is in the hospital after Edward stops the van from crushing her, and Charlie asks, you could have been killed, you understand that? To which Bella responds, yes, but I wasn't, so. And even though that line isn't in the book, it really shows how apathetic Bella has been about death since the beginning. Back to Alice and Bella's conversation, Bella is catching Alice up on what she's missed and narrates, I glossed over the beginning, skipping the motorcycles and the voices, but telling her everything else right up to today's misadventure. Alice didn't like my thin explanation about boredom and the cliffs. Again, Bella is using phrasing that implies that she isn't telling the truth to Alice or to herself about her intentions. Still, in Chapter 17 of New Moon, Alice has agreed to stay with Bella, but says she has to leave for an hour or so to hunt. She's worried about Bella, so she takes a peek at Bella's future to see if it's safe to leave, and concludes that yes, you'll be fine for tonight anyway. She grimaced. That makes me think if Alice didn't come back that night, Bella would finally be completely broken and actually would kill herself. Hence Alice's grimace.
I know that a lot of what I talked about was me reading between the lines and putting my own experiences with suicide into what Bella is saying and doing, but I think it would be irresponsible to talk about the Twilight series without addressing its connection to death, specifically suicide. Bella does a lot of saying she isn't suicidal and explaining away her dangerous behaviors, which is what many people struggling with suicidal ideations or self-harm do. If you take what she says at face value, you run the risk of being lulled into a false sense of security, not only by fictional Bella, but also real people in your life who may need your love, support, and help. I am not a licensed therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or counselor, or anything like that. I'm just a Twilight fan who has had some dark times and want to share my insights in case anyone else thinks the same way or could be somehow helped by this. If you or anyone you know is struggling with depression, self-harm, or thoughts of suicide, I suggest you look into therapy or at the very least confide in a friend. Just because Bella jumps off a cliff and everything works out for her does not mean that it will work out for anyone else. Okay, I apologize for getting all preachy at the end there, for using such large chunks of text to support my arguments, and finally for constantly switching between formal and colloquial writing.
And then she shared some more quotes, and she says, more quotes that I need to look more into, but also support my argument. And this one's from New Moon, Chapter 19. I finished her sentence. It was amazingly easy to say his name now. I wasn't sure what the difference was. Maybe I wasn't really planning on living much longer without seeing him, or at least if we were too late, it was comforting to know that I would have an easy out. Yeah, it's not good.
Alice says, we'll do what we can, Bella. It's not over yet. Bella says, not yet, and the Volturi will get us if we mess up. Alice says, you say that like it's a good thing. Bella shrugs, I guess. Angel wrote this in like a different way. Alice says, knock it off, Bella, or we're turning around in New York and going back to Forks.
Yeah, and then also in the same chapter, she says, when I end up at home alone in Forks with no one at all, maybe I didn't want to survive no matter what happened. And that's Chapter 19 in New Moon. And Angel, thank you so much for writing this all out and for being so vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something I've considered before but haven't really thought too much about, especially in terms of New Moon and Bella's apathy. Like, it's pretty obvious that she like doesn't care if she dies and that she's thought about suicide. But the idea of a spectrum, I think, is important for people to realize, because I feel like a lot of people can have those thoughts and like not even be conscious of it or admitting it to themselves until it's too late.
Yeah, that's true.
And I want to just back up what Angel was saying about if you feel like, even if it's doesn't even feel like you're going to act on it or anything, just tell someone if you are having thoughts like that.
Yes, please do. So, what do you think about all this, and then how it connects to immortality and mortality and just the whole thing?
Well, it kind of reminds me of what you were saying about control sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost like without Edward, and this is definitely not healthy.
No.
I know we've like argued back and forth and whatever about people's criticism of Bella and Edward, but it does seem like, you know, she's really struggling with life without Edward, and it's not what she wanted. That's not what she thought life was going to be like. I totally get it, Bella, but, like, yeah, sometimes things happen out of your control. She never wanted Edward to leave, and now I think she's struggling with dealing with that like, life can be out of your control, and so she seems fine with dying in that aspect. But, like, when Edward is in her life, she does want that control and wants to lock it down and be like, I'm living with you forever. You know?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like she just doesn't ever want to leave Edward, and she doesn't want Edward to leave her. This actually, I was reading an article called To Bite or Not to Bite, Twilight, Immortality, and the Meaning of Life by Brendan Shea. And he talks about how basically the writer is saying that Bella's desire to be immortal suggests that her quest in life, the thing that she thinks is her purpose, is to love Edward. And so without that, she is lost and doesn't know what to do. But then knowing that he will never die and he's immortal, she feels like because she is mortal, her life is almost meaningless without him, because she'll just die and eventually he won't.
Yeah.
So basically he says, insofar as her eventual death will prevent her from being there to protect and guide the people she loves, Bella might think that choosing immortality is the best thing for her to do. And then he poses this question, but is Bella correct in thinking that there is conflict between love and mortality? Or is there something about love and about living in a meaningful human life that actually requires for mortality? After all, Bella's love for others, her reason for living, will strike many of us as resembling our own reasons for living. If she's right in choosing to become a vampire, this suggests that our mortality is in conflict with the goals of love, and that this is our misfortune. If she's wrong, it would suggest that there's something valuable in our mortality. So basically saying, like, when Edward is in her life and she wants to be immortal, it's kind of like with what Jacob says. What was the point of me loving you, you loving him? I'm just going to die someday. So there really is no point in all of this. And so when Edward leaves, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I've thought that even with, like, breakups and stuff. It's like, what is the point?
Yeah.
We are all going to leave each other.
Yeah.
It's sad, but, like, we are all going to be left or leave people, not intentionally, but
in one way or another. So then people have that fear, like, well, if everything ends, everything ends. Basically, if there's going to be an end, what's the point of the beginning in the middle?
It's about the journey.
Yeah.
Not the destination. No, but I get that, and but at the same time, I do think, like, we're here on Earth to connect with others and to be with other people. But then I don't know. It's almost like Bella thinking this. I don't agree with her, but it's like if you didn't have relations or you didn't have love, is life worth living? I feel like it still is.
Yeah.
It might be hard, but
well, then this article talks a lot about, like, a meaningful life and, like, what is that? Like, what is the point of living, and, like, what is the purpose?
Nobody knows.
No one knows it. No, but people at the same time, people kind of do know. Like, a lot of times that is other people or the relationships that you have, or sometimes it's the...
But you can't really depend
on
other
it.
People
Exactly.
to be your meaning of life. Even if it's your family, even if it's your kids, like, that's outside of you. I mean, oh my God, this relates back to the power of now. I mean, he says that, like, really it's about you, like, your relationship
with yourself,
to God or the universe, and that's really all that matters. But if you are in tune with that, then you would have love with other people and connection to humankind and blah blah blah. But in that, again, this is one person's opinion, but
that's true.
Because, like, it is. Yeah, I mean, I think the point of life, you could say, is for love and with other people. But yeah, what happens if you lose them?
That's true.
What happens, like, if literally your whole family and all your friends die? It's happened to people before.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about those people? They just keep going, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
You have to. And you can always... The thing is, you can always meet other people. Bella doesn't seem to understand that. I mean, she's a teenager. But, like, you could just, like, go into a diner in a random town and just talk to somebody. Yeah. And then that could be your new...
Exactly.
Friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring, Kelly. Well, one thing I was thinking when you were reading it is Bella is so extreme. It's either I'm gonna die now or I'm never ever gonna die. I feel like there's never really a time when she thinks she's gonna just live a long, beautiful life and for it to end when she's an old lady the way it's supposed to be.
Oh my god, that relates to this. Am I allowed to talk about this yet? Is this good? Are we doing this in like a good flow, a good order?
I hope so. Yeah, there really is no structure. It's just kind of as the conversation progresses.
This, what I'm referring to is Tuck Everlasting. Oh my god. It's in my hand. Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. If you're not familiar, it's a children's novel, actually. It's so good. I really recommend reading it. It was published in 1975. And so it's about this girl, Winnie. She lives in a town called Tree Gap. She's an only child. It's actually so similar to Twilight.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I have a feeling
it's like in the woods, too.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this was an inspiration behind Twilight.
That's cool with me. I love Tuck Everlasting. And I like that it's similar to Twilight because it is for kids, so it is kind of romantic, but it doesn't really get that romantic, and I always felt kind of frustrated with that. So I'm glad that there's like a more adult version, which is Twilight. But so basically, this girl Winnie, she's an only child. I think she's kind of shy. This family comes to town, the Tucks, and I don't remember how she finds this out, but basically they're like hundreds of years old. They're immortal because there's a spring in town. It's kind of like a fountain of youth where if you drink the water, you live forever. And she kind of forms like a relationship with one of the sons, Jesse, and he's like in love with her. I mean, it's kind of weird because she's like 13, but she really gets to know the family. And then there's just like this whole plot about somebody knows that they're immortal and they have to leave town. Yeah. Spoilers. I do want to talk about the end, so I will say, like, there will be spoilers. But can I read a part?
Yes.
So, this is the girl, Winnie. She's actually with the dad right now.
I always think about this.
Yes. And they're at a stream. They're in a boat. On a river. Not a stream. And so this is what the dad says. Know what this is all around us, Winnie, said Tuck, his voice low. Life, moving, growing, changing, never the same 2 minutes together. This water, you look out at it every morning and it looks the same, but it ain't. All night long it's been moving, coming in through the stream back there to the west, slipping out through the stream down east here. Always quiet, always new, moving on. You can't hardly see the current, can you? And sometimes the wind makes it look like it's going the other way, but it's always there. The water is always moving on. And someday, after a long while, it comes to the ocean. So, there. It kind of describes the scenery, blah, blah, blah. Know what happens then, said Tuck, to the water. The sun sucks it up right out of the ocean and carries it back in the clouds, and then it rains, and the rain falls into the stream, and the stream keeps moving on, taking it all back again. It's a wheel, Winnie. Everything's a wheel, turning and turning, never stopping. The frogs is part of it, the bugs and the fish and the woods thrush too, and people, but never the same ones, always coming in new, always growing and changing, and always moving on. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it is. Describing the scenery, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, it goes on to the ocean, but this rowboat now, it's stuck. If we didn't move it out ourselves, it would stay forever here trying to get loose, but stuck. That's what us Tucks are, Winnie. Stuck so we can't move on. We ain't part of the wheel no more. Dropped off, Winnie, left behind. And everything and everywhere around us, things is moving and growing and changing. You, for instance, a child now, but someday a woman. And after that, moving on to make room for the new children. And Winnie's kind of like realizing this, and she gets upset, and she says, I don't want to die. No, said Tuck calmly, not now. Your time's not now, but dying's part of the wheel, right there next to being born. You can't pick out the pieces you like and leave the rest. Being part of the whole thing, that's a blessing. But it's passing us by, us Tucks. Living's heavy work, but off to one side, the way we are, it's useless too. It don't make sense. If I knowed how to climb back on the wheel, I'd do it in a minute. You can't have living without dying. So you can't call it living what we got. We just are. We just be like rocks beside the road.
I always think about that because when I was a kid, I was so afraid of dying. And when I heard that was the first time I ever thought, oh, it's not all it's, or living forever is not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, it's just like what Rosalie talks about.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is all we'll ever be, stuck.
Never moving forward.
Well, and it's sad.
It is sad because imagine if you were watching everybody else change and you don't change. Because change is really the only constant in life.
Life is like about stages. Like, think about where we are now. We're like in our early mid-20s. I'm more mid, you're more early.
Yeah.
So everybody in our life right now is kind of like figuring out their careers, getting apartments, like dating. People are thinking about like, who am I gonna marry? Maybe not right this second, but like maybe in the next couple of years or something. That's what's on their mind. And then after that, people will be like getting married, and then people will be having kids. Not everybody, but like that's what a lot of people do. And maybe if you're not, you're thinking more about your career and traveling and I don't know, your projects that you do. Anyway, and then you get older and maybe you have grandkids and now you're like retired. There's stages to life. If you're not moving, it's like you're just on the outside watching.
Exactly. And also I feel like those stages are motivating a lot of times.
It's like your purpose.
Exactly. Like I was thinking about on The Sims, for instance. It's stupid, but like I get addicted to that game. Like, guys, sometimes I can't stop playing it for like days on end. I've literally knocked on the bathroom for like 9 hours because I've been playing The Sims. But it's because I'm like, I just gotta get to their next birthday.
Yeah.
I just gotta see them have the baby. I gotta see them. Yeah. Like I gotta get to fall. Like I'm always in. That's kind of the beauty of The Sims. Is like it shows like how it's just so exciting the change that is always happening.
And it is sad. Like if you do the whole family tree. Like if you keep, I would always play for like generations.
Yeah, me too.
Like it's sad. Like the person you started with dies, but then you're still playing with their grandkids.
Yeah.
And stuff,
and they're kind of living on.
Yeah.
And
they look like them, kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's cool. But that is your motivation. Like, if we were not changing at all, like, I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
If I wasn't, like, I do have a slight stress right now where it's like,
sometimes it happens
my life.
too fast.
Meet someone.
Yeah.
Like, or it's happening too fast. But, like, if there was I wouldn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
There's no urgency.
Well, I think it's also really beautiful, too, that we have had different stages in our lives before us as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool that, like, we've been able to be babies and, like, we've been 5 and we've been 10 and it's...
And teenager.
Yeah. And it's, like, all those times are, like, then still a bit a part of you afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's, like, what makes you who you are.
I want to talk about the end of this book, though. So, spoiler... If you've never read it or seen the movie with Alexis Bledel, which, by the way, I used to want Alexis Bledel to play Bella back in the day.
Ugh, no.
I think it's because of this movie.
Yeah, probably. That would have been too similar.
Okay, I'm just going to summarize, though. But, basically, so, like, this girl, Winnie, she gets caught up in this family. It's literally like Bella and the Cullens. And the family has to flee the town because somebody knows that they're immortal and stuff. And Jesse tells her, like, drink the water, we'll come back for you. Like, he's telling her, like, become immortal.
The opposite of Edward.
Yeah. He's like, drink the water, and, we'll come back, and we'll be together forever. And they leave town. Okay, so then there's an epilogue, and the parents have come back to Tree Gap. I don't know where Jesse and the other son are, but Minnie and Tuck, they come back to Tree Gap. It's been forever. And so when this book took place in, like, 1870, I think, and now it's 1950. And I don't know, I was reading this the other night and I started to cry because the town is like all different now. It says like Tree Gap Hotel, family dining, easy rates, the post office, beyond that the jailhouse, but a larger jailhouse now painted brown with an office for the county clerk. A black and white police car was parked in front with a red glass searchlight on its roof and the radio antenna like a buggy whip fastened to the windshield. It's like, it's so different now. Like when Winnie was there, it was literally the 1800s with like buggies and stuff. So the parents go to a diner and they're like asking questions like, oh, is there still, what is it? Didn't there used to be a wood once down the other side of the town? Like that woods is like gone. And has been cleared out, and they're just kind of looking around this town that they haven't been to in like almost 100 years. And then they see the cemetery, and they go in there, and they see this grave, and it's Winnie's grave, and it says, "In loving memory, Winifred Foster Jackson, dear wife, dear mother, 1870 to 1948. And Tuck's like, so 2 years, she's been gone 2 years, and it's like really sad, and they're like, oh, poor Jessie. And then Tuck says he knowed it though, at least he knowed she wasn't coming back. We all knowed that a long time ago. So it's like a little sad, but then they just kind of go like, all right, now where to? And they like get in their car or something and they leave. Yeah. And that's the end of the book. And it's kind of like an alternate version of what Twilight could have been.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so true.
It's like, it's the opposite ending.
Yeah. That is so sad. I feel like I always thought there was a note that was left that, like, she was like, I couldn't do it. No, but I guess it's just the implication.
She might have before the epilogue.
It's really interesting because she really wanted to be immortal, I think.
Yeah. Well, before the epilogue, you know, back when she's still a kid, she has the water, but then she actually decided to pour it on a toad instead of drinking it. And so the last...
Does the toad live forever?
Yeah. So, like, the very end, they're, like, about to drive over a toad that's in the middle of the road, and the mom says, darn fool, must think it's gonna live forever. And, yeah, the toad's just there.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. That poor toad. What if it didn't want that?
Imagine living your whole life as a toad! Oh! Immortal toad. I don't know if she wrote a note.
No, I don't think she did.
Makes me feel sad.
It makes me so sad, but...
Does part of you... I don't know. Like, I love that her and Edward they're together, but, like, she could have... She never saw that as a possibility, that she could get married and have kids. And, she doesn't have to do that. I know everyone's like, she doesn't have to have kids. But she could have lived a life, and it's sad, but... Edward could have visited her grave.
I think what's interesting is in Twilight, it's presented as this perfectly happy ending. You know, they're forever, and they live forever, and it's like it couldn't be any better. Like, they're literally never gonna die. But when you actually think about it realistically, like, first of all, none of the other vampires seem happy that they're immortal. None of them are like, yeah, this is great. Really? I mean, maybe the Volturi.
I wonder if eventually Bella and Edward will be on the same page as the others.
Well, so that's what this article I was reading about was talking about. And it basically was actually talking about this philosopher, Bernard Williams. And he said that we're driven in life by these things called categorical desires, which are desires on the condition that we are alive to fulfill them. And basically it's kind of like, sometimes it's to have kids or to, you know, get a promotion or whatever. It's sometimes like living for things which you are going to live behind, but maybe even not get to experience all of the perks of it. So like, writing a novel or having kids that will have kids and whatever it is. He says basically that when Bella is older, these desires will fade because she won't really, she's going to do everything, try everything, and like really what are you anymore, I guess. Basically saying like she'll get bored. So the writer, Brendan Shea, says, the problem with categorical desires, according to Williams, is that they eventually dry up. The desire to successfully raise 4 or 5 or 10, 20 children might well provide meaning and purpose to a person's life. But what happens when one has raised hundreds of children over the course of thousands of years? It seems likely that over an infinite expanse of time, many of us would find it difficult to hold on to the same attitude of hope and caring that we originally had. Nothing would be new or surprising. The same thing holds true for almost any categorical desire. One can only write so many books or compete in so many sporting events before one ceases to find such activities worthy of pursuit. Bella has every reason to expect one day, perhaps thousands of years from now, she will have lost her categorical desires and she will become bored with her new life. When this day comes, it's unclear whether it will still be Bella making her choice to commit suicide or to continue on. After all, we are all defined by those things that truly matter to us. Someone else in Bella's body, someone with the same memories but not with Bella's categorical desires for the well-being of others wouldn't be recognizable as Bella. So basically, when she is going to have lived for thousands of years, is she even Bella anymore? Because she'll become desensitized to the things which she truly cares about now.
Probably not.
But the one thing is, in Stephenie Meyer's universe, when these vampires mate, they mate for life, and they're always madly, deeply in love with each other. But in real life, if you were with someone forever and ever, the things that excited you, and you know you're never going to die, would they excite you anymore? I feel like you'd become very bored of them, and it wouldn't be happy.
Probably. I know.
And
I'm sure you'd still love them, but like thousands of years, or even hundreds of years of hooking up with the same dude. I'm monogamous AF, guys. Like, I really am, but like, even I think that seems a little crazy.
This reminds me a lot of a song called If We Were Vampires by Jason Isbell, and it talks about that. It's like, at first it's great, but he says, so basically the lyrics are like, if we were vampires and death was a joke, we'd go out on the sidewalk and smoke and laugh at all the lovers and their plans. I wouldn't feel the need to hold their hand. And then he says, maybe time running out is a gift. I'll work hard till the end of my shift and give you every second I can find and hope it isn't me who's left behind. It's knowing that this can't go on forever. Likely one of us will have to die or spend some days alone. Maybe we'll get 40 days together, but one day I'll be gone or one day you'll be gone. It's like...
So sweet.
It's sweet because it's like the fact that you are going to die is what gives you the urgency to make the most out of it. And like, if you were never going to die, would you ever even profess your love for someone? Because you have all the time in the world.
I know, and it almost makes sense that Edward would be so captivated by a human, I think, because it's like, shoot, like, she's not gonna live forever. She keeps almost dying.
Yeah.
But as for, like, vampire relationships, I don't know, they don't seem that interesting to me.
Yeah, they don't seem as interesting to me either. Because it's like, what are they just doing? Like...
Yeah, and I think... Even though people might think getting old sucks, which I really want to change our culture's viewpoint on that, because everyone gets old, just like everyone dies. Even though you might think getting old isn't the best or something, that's what you imagine. Like, when you're in love with someone, don't you just imagine, like, if you're 20 or something, you're like, oh, what would we be like if we were 40? And then you're like, oh, what about when we're old people? And, like, it brings me back to Rosalie and Emmett, like... She thinks that's tragic that they're never going to be old, and it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My mom always says, like, when it's, like, her birthday, sometimes we're like, oh, can you believe you're 60 or something? And, like, sometimes she's like, oh, I wish I didn't have wrinkles. I wish my hair was thicker. But, like, it is better than the alternative.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that you see another birthday, that you are aging.
This is deep, man.
This is deep. Well, that was making me think that urgency that leads to excitement, kind of, and anxiety, and that's like what makes a relationship exciting. Is that a little bit why Edward didn't want Bella to become a vampire? Because he's like, oh gosh, this won't be fun anymore.
I wouldn't judge him if that's why.
No.
I would get that. Gosh, this is making me want to, like, run out and profess my love to someone and, like, get on a plane and go to Europe.
Oh, yeah. I, like, meant to text someone, but I accidentally texted my mom, like...
What?
I'm so... No, it's not what you think. But I meant to text, like, a friend or something, like, I'm so afraid that I'm gonna die someday. I'm so aware of it, so, like, I have to be in love with someone who's in love with me back. I just want this beautiful romance. I fucking texted it to my mom at, like, 11 p.m.
Wait, last night?
No, not last night. It's a different time, and I was so embarrassed about it.
What did she say back?
And then she was like, have you tried eHarmony?
That is wicked funny.
I was so embarrassed because me and my mom don't talk like that. Sorry, Mom. She's probably maybe listening.
Hi, Mary. How are you? Can I read another quote?
Yes.
You know, guys, this is my favorite scene. It's in New Moon. It's Carlisle and Bella.
Yes.
I effing love this part. Okay. I felt like if we're doing the Mortality episode,
yeah,
I had to read this part. Okay. So, Carlisle's doing her stitches. And he's talking about his father, who was very religious and was a vampire hunter, actually, right? He's talking about faith and all that. Bella's talking about her own family's religious habits. And he says, I'm sure all of this sounds a little bizarre coming from a vampire. He grinned, knowing how their casual use of that word never failed to shock me. But I'm hoping that there's still a point to this life, even for us. It's a long shot, I'll admit, he continued in an offhand voice. By all accounts, we're damned regardless, but I hope, maybe foolishly, that we'll get some measure of credit for trying. I don't think that's foolish, I mumbled. I couldn't imagine anyone, deity included, who wouldn't be impressed by Carlisle. Besides, the only kind of heaven I could appreciate would have to include Edward. And I don't think anyone else would either. Actually, you're the very first one to agree with me. Carlisle said that. The rest of them don't feel the same, I asked, surprised, thinking of only one person in particular. Carlisle guessed the direction of my thoughts again. Edward's with me up to a point. God and heaven exist, and so does hell, but he doesn't believe there is an afterlife for our kind. Carlisle's voice was very soft. He stared out the big window over the sink into the darkness. You see, he thinks we've lost our souls. I immediately thought of Edward's voice this afternoon, unless you want to die, or whatever it is that we do. The light bulb flicked on over my head. That's the real problem, isn't it, I guessed. That's why he's being so difficult about me. Carlisle spoke slowly. I look at my son, his strength, his goodness, the brightness that shines out of him, and it only fuels the hope that hope, that faith, more than ever. How could there not be more for one such as Edward? But if I believed as he does, he looked down at me with unfathomable eyes. If you believed as he did, could you take away his soul?
The whole soul thing is so interesting to me because I feel like I've always been like, well, of course they have a soul.
Yeah.
But I said this to you the other night. Like, what is a soul and why would a vampire not have it?
Yeah, why would a vampire not have it?
Well, this article I was reading kind of explained that.
Oh,
do you want me to read it to you?
Why don't you tell me?
It said, so the guy, Brendan Shea, said, if our souls are the things, whatever they are, that make us human, the question becomes, could a vampire have one? Imagine for a moment that you are Carlisle. It's morning, you spent the sleepless night listening to music and rereading your favorite book for the 30th time. You go downstairs and say goodbye to your family. You're never tired, so there's no point to picking up coffee on the way to work. You only need to hunt for your food once a month or so there's no such thing as a family breakfast. It's cold outside, but you don't notice. You'll never get ill from undressing or not washing your hands or eating the wrong thing. You'll never be out of shape or be tired after a long day's work. There's no need to give your children a ride to school or to worry when they are not home on time. The last time one was hit by a car, the vehicle was the victim. You go to the hospital where you've worked for the last several years. Some of your colleagues worry that they've wasted the prime of their lives and that they never can get back the long hours they've dedicated to the hospital. Their children have grown up and moved away. Yours, of course, will remain exactly as they've always been. Outside of the occasional disagreements with rival vampire clans, there is no real danger in the Collins' lives. This may sound quite pleasant until we consider how inhuman such a life would be. In particular, it's hard to see how such a life could have the same type of meaning or purpose that a well-structured human life does. Bella's love and sacrifice for others gives meaning to her life. Edward's love for Bella can never quite be the same. His choice to stay in Forks, unlike Bella's, does not involve any real sacrifice. Bella's mother will get older, and her Phoenix friends will move away to college. Edward's family remains unchanged, and he always has an infinite amount of time to travel and go to college. Likewise, Edward's risks on Bella's behalf are at first relatively trivial. Edward risks not, and then basically he says, like, I cut that off, but he says that every time Edward kind of risks his life, besides when he goes and kills James, in Victoria, so this doesn't really play out, but they're less meaningful, like his acts of heroism. When he goes to stop the van, or he, I don't know, whatever things he does, he's not risking his life at all, so he says, the guy says, to be a genuine lover or a friend is to be prepared to make sacrifices, but immortals simply have no way to sacrifice them. Basically, this might not even be backing up the point that they don't have souls, but they are really not human in any way. They don't experience the same things that we as humans experience.
Yeah. my god, it's like The Sims with the cheats.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, does that take away the fact that they would have a soul? But at the same time, other creatures don't really experience that too, except they do experience change.
Yeah. I know. Do other animals have souls? Where would a vampire's soul go when they become a vampire? I don't know. And, like, yeah, it's strange. Because I always think of a soul as being, like, your personality or something, or, like, that true essence of you. But I still believe in that, but what freaks me out is that the way they act and the way they are can change from, like, trauma to your head or something, and, like, people have changed, and, like, that really freaks me out. But
yeah, and so, like, where does that soul go?
I know,
because I think of, like, that's why I don't like reincarnation, because I think I am my memories, like, I am my relationships, I am all those things in my personality, so I don't care if I come back as somebody else, because that's not me anymore.
Yeah, I know. I don't like that either.
Yeah. It's like your soul is this other thing that you are not even conscious of, in a way. But I get sad when I think a lot about Alice and how she doesn't really remember her past life at all, because it's like, and that there's a grave for herself. It's like, wow, that was someone who had a whole life, and, like, people she knew and people who cared about her, I guess, and that person really did die if she can't remember it.
Yeah,
and, like,
freaky.
So where did that soul go? It's really sad.
The thing is, like, I think when they talk about not having souls, to me, and being damned, it's like, oh, because they're unnatural and kind of evil in that way, or just wrong in that, I don't know, let's say the devil or opposite of God or whatever, like, that would make sense to me, but a lot of times they become vampires out of their control, and that doesn't seem right to me. I'm like, it's not fair. Why would Edward lose his soul when he didn't even choose to be a vampire?
Exactly.
And Carlisle's like this great guy, and I mean, he didn't choose to be a vampire either. Most of them didn't. So it's like, why would they lose their soul for that?
Yeah. At the same time, they do have a lot of human characteristics. Like, Carlisle turned them all because he couldn't bear to be without companionship, and that's a necessity for humans.
Let's say, like, science and medicine got super extreme and we no longer needed to, like, eat or sleep somehow or whatever.
Just had, like, all the
cheats. Would we still be human?
That's a good point. Yeah, if we had super strength.
I mean, I was reading these Reddits, like, subreddit pages, and all these people were kind of arguing, like, oh, everybody says immortality would be boring or blah, blah, blah. No, it wouldn't. And these people seem to think that it's actually going to be possible for... These are just people online. They think it's possible that we could become immortal, or at least live a really long time. And there's a lot of ethics and stuff that goes into that. And the people on the subreddit, they were very pro-immortality. And they were like, people just say that death's part of life, but no.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, as I was reading this, I thought this was kind of funny, but also terrifying. It was saying that if you're immortal, and you really lived, like, thousands of years, at some point you might get stuck somewhere.
What does that mean?
Like, like if there's an earthquake or something, you'll get, like, stuck under a
God.
rock. Wouldn't that be horrible?
That would be the worst. Well, if you were a vampire, you could get your way out of it.
That's true. They're really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they talk about souls because, like, well, if you're immortal, who cares? But it is because they are not really totally immortal, because they will die someday. And they know that.
I feel like it's not even possible to be truly immortal. Even if you did kind of live as long as our galaxy or whatever. Like, I'm assuming someday something would happen, but I don't know.
Would the Cullens or vampires in general in this world ever try to, like, just go up into space? Like, if they're not gonna die from it, they should like, just, like,
they should become, go to space.
I just feel like the problem with that is it would probably attract too much attention. People would be like, why is there a spaceship in the sky? Who's on that thing?
That's true.
Could they bounce their way up there if they wanted to?
Bounce?
Could they jump up there? They can't fly. They
think
can't
so.
fly.
Can they build their own spaceship?
Yeah, but people would see it.
That's true.
And, like, NASA would
the
see
US
it.
would, like, shoot it down.
Yeah, that would cause way too much commotion. But it would be cool. They could, like, go up into, like, and walk around on all the stars and even on. Well, no, they probably can't go on the sun.
No.
They would die. Yeah.
Did you know that if you go to Venus, which no one's ever been to Venus, and no one ever should, because the storms are so bad on Venus that when Russia sent a space probe there, it only lasted like 20 minutes before getting destroyed.
Oh my god. Space freaks me out more than anything.
Very, very freaky. When we were just saying this, I was imagining like, oh, they could, I'm sure they have actually, could swim across the ocean, could swim to Asia or swim to Russia.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be scary?
That would be so
Imagine,
scary.
Like, whales and stuff. Oh, that'd be so scary.
Even if you were a vampire, I feel like you still would have fear sometimes.
That would be terrifying.
Okay, because if you were
in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, a shark isn't gonna attack you. You can kill it pretty easily.
If you're a vampire.
If you're a vampire, but I feel like it still would be scary.
Yeah. The waves.
And it'd be so dark down there. Right? But could they see through the darkness?
I guess they could swim at the surface.
Yeah. But it would be cool. They could really explore things.
Some article I was reading, like, there's a lot of things out there about immortality. What would it be like? And someone was saying, like, arguing that you wouldn't get bored. And they're like, even if you've been to India 30 times, you could still always go back. And, like, I don't know. I do think it would take a very long time to do everything.
Yeah.
But you might lose your motivation to even try.
Yeah. Well, I also think with life is like the fact is we don't get enough time. Mm-hmm. We don't get to go everywhere. We don't get to try everything. And that's kind of like a sucky thing is like we really do need more time. It's kind of not fair that that's how it's set up. So it's natural to always have that appeal for immortality because you're going to have to miss out on so many things.
I also wrote in my notes here, not aging would be hard, I think. Looking young, but feeling much wiser than everyone around you, but not really accepted by older people. I do think that would be annoying.
That would be really annoying, especially to be in high school.
I cannot imagine.
I couldn't even be in high school now.
I could not go back to high school.
It's my reoccurring nightmare where they're like, do you have a hall pass? And I'm like, do you know who I am? I've been to college.
Yeah.
Do random things on a Tuesday during, like, I don't know.
I bet also, like, I mean, young people, I mean, we are still young, but, like, I think young people are so confused and, like, often dramatic and causing problems and just don't know what to do. And if you've been around for, like, 100 years, 200 years, you probably are pretty at peace, I'm guessing, with yourself, and you would probably be annoyed by other young people. You'd be like, oh, get a grip. Like,
yeah,
I
exactly.
cannot deal with this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be so annoying. No one would respect you.
And wouldn't it suck if you really loved, like, the 80s or the 1930s or, I don't even know, 1870s, and now, like, so much time has passed and you just, like, don't relate to culture anymore.
Yeah, and time would move so quickly for someone of your kind. Mm-hmm. Well, this article I read also kind of mentions that with, like, so because Bella is mortal, it really makes this relationship really unequal. And one of those things is the fact that because Edward can live forever, Bella probably has this fear that she is like a speck in his life. Yeah. She's really just kind of like a second. And so I feel like for her to feel worthy, she wants him to change her because then it's like, well, you can just keep going on living and you'll forget about me.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I wonder if Bella stayed mortal and died one day, would Edward have ever loved again?
Not in this universe that Stephanie Meyer has written. No, that's not canon in the story. And
remember, I do this to everyone.
I do this to everyone.
She has a new girlfriend.
But in reality, that probably would happen.
Yeah.
But not in this fantasy.
No.
But I would have that fear if I was dating someone who lived forever. of like they will go on without me. And that's why I was thinking that, like, so teenagers especially always feel like they're immortal. I mean, we all think about death. And, you know, not always. Some teenagers probably think about it more than others. It's kind of, that's a stereotype of youth, and it's true to some extent. But Bella has to think about it way more because her death is way more pressing in comparison to her boyfriend's. But, like, why wouldn't you want to live forever if the love of your life wasn't going to die?
Asking me?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that? I know, that would be hard.
Yeah.
You'd have to be really secure within yourself, I think, to be like, all right, you go on without me. Like, I'm going to do this for myself, basically.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is insecurity, too, because a lot of it comes down to the superficialness of being like, someday I'll look like an old lady.
Yeah, that's big to her.
Yeah.
I think that's a big motivator for Bella.
But if she was really secure in her relationship and in herself, that shouldn't concern her too much.
Easier said than done, maybe.
Yeah. But she also knows that, a part of her knows that, like, Edward will die when she dies. So she knows that, like,
That's
if she
true.
dies, he will kill himself. And kind of setting him up for that.
Edward! It's upsetting.
It is upsetting.
Would you become a vampire?
No. Well, this whole thing is making me feel like the beauty of life is that you live and you change and you grow and you die.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I would want to be immortal.
I usually say yeah. I'm usually always saying, like, I wish I was a vampire.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't need to sleep. I wish I had more time. I always want to have more time. But yeah, this discussion is affecting me. I'm like, I don't know. Sounds pretty bleak.
Yeah. It's tough because sometimes you can say, like, that's the beauty of life, is that you live a full life. But then there's also instances where people die super young and it's so tragic. And there's like, no way to, like, put a silver lining on that. Like, there's no way to say that's how it's supposed to be, because it's not supposed to be that way either.
No, it's sad.
And, like, the thing is, that's a threat for all of us.
Oh my God.
Knock on wood. I hope not for me.
I can't imagine that Carlisle was alone.
All that time? Yeah.
And immortal. Like, I cannot imagine that.
I actually have another thing to say about Carlisle. And it goes back to those desires of, like, what are you living for? And it says, the article said, Carlisle, unlike many of the other vampires, does not seem to need the threat of danger to motivate him to acts of love and compassion. In fact, his life seems to be the paradigm of a meaningful life. He spends his days working at a hospital and his nights with his family. He has saved many of his family members from premature death and still serves as something like a father to his immortal children. Carlisle represents the possibility of living a meaningful immortal existence. The possibility of Carlisle living this meaningful life requires that other people be mortal. However, Carlisle's work in a hospital, for example, only makes sense if there are creatures capable of sickness and death. If everyone in the world were a vampire, there would certainly be far less need for such work. Even Carlisle's role as a father depends on his saving the children from sure death and helping them to adjust to their new life. If everyone were guaranteed immortality, there would simply be no one Carlisle could help. This does not show, of course, that immortals must live meaningless lives. Instead, they must find new values to give structure to their lives, and these new values may be quite different from the type one might expect. I thought that was interesting.
That is.
Because not a lot of other vampires are doing the same thing. They're just hunting, killing, and running around and kind of giving into their own impulses. There's seemingly no meaning to life, but Carlisle has contradicted that and is doing the best he can to save his soul.
Oh, Carlisle.
Oh, Carlisle. Do you think he's doing that out of fear of him not having a soul?
Possibly. Possibly. Yeah, he's like doing everything he can.
Yeah.
I hope it works for him.
Yeah, me too. Well, I had some questions, some discussion questions. I feel like we answered a lot of them.
Ask away, though.
Okay, so I'll just go down the list and we can answer quickly if we have.
Okay.
But, so does immortality make love more or less meaningful, do you think?
Mortality or immortality?
Oh, sorry, mortality.
They sound similar. Why would it make it less meaningful? I don't get that.
Well, the fact that we're all just going to die someday, so what's the point?
Oh, more. I'd say more.
I say more, too.
I think, yeah, that urgency, that, I don't know, especially if we're talking romantic love, like that desire to partner up with someone and grow old with them and blah, blah, blah. Like, that wouldn't be a thing if it weren't for the fact that we die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And if you lived forever, I feel like you wouldn't feel that need as much.
Yeah.
To, like, show your love for people.
Yeah, and if you lived forever, there, again, the urgency's gone. You might be like, meh. Maybe next month I'll join a dating app, or maybe in 10 years. Like, I don't know. It's just, don't really need love
exactly
as much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do, because if you were immortal, you'd be lonely.
You would need companionship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
even platonic love, I feel like sometimes when you realize your love the most for someone is when they die, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's like when you kind of get like a flashback of like your whole relationship with that person. And you're like, wow, that was really meaningful. But without that, sometimes just in the living moments, you don't have that.
I know. It's sad. And every time someone dies, you're like, now I'm going to really appreciate everybody.
Yeah.
And you do, but then you kind of just go back to normal life.
It fades, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But that's, I always think about this lyric in like a Miley Cyrus song where she's like, death is life, it's not a curse. It reminds us of time and what it's worth. And like, yeah, death is super, super sad. But the like one good thing about it is it reminds you how important people are.
Otherwise, you would be kind of soulless.
Yeah.
Heartless.
Yeah, which is what I think a lot of vampires are. Not saying the clones are. I feel like their connection to a immortal makes them more human.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. We basically answered this, but are the Twilight vampires truly immortal when they are capable of dying? And if Edward couldn't kill himself, like he couldn't die at all, do you think he would put up such a stink about Bella's soul and not wanting to turn her?
Wait, if he couldn't die at all?
If he couldn't die at all, because I feel
would
like...
he not put up a stink?
Because he knows Bella will die someday, and he knows he'll just kill himself when that happens, he knows he never really has to live without her.
Yeah.
But if that wasn't the case, and he's going to have to live without her when she dies, no matter what, do you think he would just turn her?
I think maybe he would change his mind about that.
I think he would too.
If he thought there's no way out, and he's like, oh my god, I'm going to have to live forever without her. Yeah.
That would be horrible for him.
I think he would turn her.
Yeah. I think he would too.
Interesting.
I don't think he's that perfect that he would be that selfless to let her go.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. And then this one I feel like we don't know how to answer, but what is a soul and why would a vampire not have one? We basically already talked about that. We don't know. Oh, this one I didn't cover yet. Why do the werewolves want the vampires to leave when their presence is what allows them immortality?
Okay, I wanted to talk about the werewolves because they can live forever as long as they're actively being a wolf. And I guess once they stop, then they age and will die.
Yeah.
Like when they retire or whatever. And I wish we kind of got a little bit more about their perspective. We never hear Jacob or anybody else in the tribe talk about this. It's like, why... It seems like they value death. And they value growing old and stuff. And I don't know if it's because they can't reproduce while they're being a wolf or while they're being immortal. I'm not sure if that's the reason. But, like, it's kind of assumed that eventually they'll, like, retire and then grow old and die. Yeah. Do the wolves not... Do they think immortality is wrong? It's never really said. Like, why do they choose to die even though they kind of are immortal?
This, I feel like I am not an expert enough to speak on, but I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that, like, a lot of times in Native American culture, they really value circularness. Like, a lot of their stories are circular, and they value, like, the kind of, like, the wheel that you were talking about of, like,
yeah,
this turns into this and turns into that. And
possibly.
I'm not well read up on this at all, so I feel like I can't really speak on it too much, but I just remember that, like, in every story I've read that was by a Native American author, that was always the theme of, like, that wheel.
Why do the wolves... Why are they sort of immortal? Just the convenience of Jacob and Esme?
But
that's kind of what I think.
Is Jacob going to keep being a werewolf with the Cullens around? Like, are they still going to be a threat to him?
I don't know I don't even think it matters if they're a threat, though, because the Cullens were never a threat to them, and they turned into wolves anyway. It's just vampires in general.
Yeah.
I think he will.
Well,
he already is a werewolf. Like, I think once you turn into one, you are one.
But the Cullens were around for a while before they turned into werewolves.
I know, it's weird.
I don't really know when Sam turned, but I feel like Jacob was doing just fine for like a couple of years when the Cullens were around. So
also,
I don't get the logic.
So Billy, his generation they weren't wolves, right?
Yeah.
But his parents, were.
Yeah.
Did they live a long time, or were they? Like, did that extend their lives at all, or?
Yeah, because they're all dead now.
I don't get it.
Where are they? Why are they dead?
I don't know.
Because that should have extended their life a little bit.
I don't get it.
Because Billy's what, 50?
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
So his parents presumably would be like 70, but if they had
The book acts as though Jacob's grandparents been dead long time.
Yeah.
Like, it's ancient history.
They should still be alive. You don't see that generation at all. Like, if they had like an extra 10, 15 years to their life because they were immortal for that time, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Would you say the wolves are immortal? It seems like they can die quite easily. Like, even if you are being a wolf, they heal quickly, but it seems like they can still die much more easily than a vampire.
Because I feel like they could also still die from human causes as werewolves. Like, I feel like they could still get in, like, a car accident and die.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Right? What do you guys think? I don't know.
Drown?
Don't you think if you were a werewolf, though, and, like, you felt like your time wasn't ready yet, or, like, you didn't want to die, or, like, I don't know, you were feeling scared about this, so, like, you'd be on the lookout for vampires just to, like, extend your life?
I think that once you are a werewolf, though, it doesn't really matter. Like, you are a werewolf.
Yeah.
Even if the vampires are gone.
No, I think they stopped doing the whole werewolf thing, right?
No, I think that, like, that's what causes you to turn into a werewolf. But then I think once you are one...
You're always one?
You just are a werewolf, yeah. That's what I think.
I thought you
Jacob, like,
stopped.
How would that work, though? Like, what's the proximity? Like, Jacob becomes a wolf and just runs, like, 300 miles away to Canada. Like, I don't think he's near a vampire, but he's still a wolf.
No, I feel like when they're 50, they won't be able to phase into wolves anymore.
What if they've been wolves the whole time?
Oh, like they never unphased?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they are unphasing, but then they phase back.
I think eventually they'll stop being able to phase, right?
I don't know.
That'd be gross if they were like 50 and all of a sudden their clothes are falling off.
Maybe they're buff for life.
Oh, yeah, like Brad Pitt. Okay, sorry. They're 80 and they're phasing.
Oh, Brad Pitt! Oh. Is he immortal?
Wait, maybe.
He was in Interview with a Vampire.
We know someone who we were, like, convinced was a vampire.
Oh, yeah.
There's, like, a lot of stuff to back that up. Maybe we'll talk about it on our Patreon.
Maybe. One time when I was working at the chocolate shop, this girl came in. She came in twice, I think. She was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe she had plastic surgery, I don't know. But And she also had short blonde hair. She kind of looked like a Denali girl or something. I don't know. I know there's a lot of beautiful people out there, but like something about this girl really freaked me out. I was like, oh my god, is she a vampire?
Shit.
She's really pale too.
Well, they say to trust your instincts. They say when you get...
I think she
Oprah
was.
says that. Oprah says it is when you get that... Something's not quite right. When you get that feeling, if you guys listen to Super Soul Conversations.
Something feels not quite right.
Not quite right. Listen to that. Listen to it.
Like, please believe me. I know.
I believe you.
Like, you know, even when you think of celebrities and like Gigi Hadid, whatever, like, no, this girl was like
otherworldly.
And she even had really short hair.
Yeah.
She didn't matter. I don't know.
I believe you.
Her skin was just perfect.
I bet. I bet.
I was in Salem, Massachusetts, so who knows?
Shit, yeah, spooky things happen there.
I love when weird things happen, I'm like, vampires.
Yeah.
I kind of hope they're real.
Me too. Me too. But I don't...
Could it be possible? Is everything real?
Yeah, what is the
I don't know what the quote is.
All the stories. Okay, let me see if I have more questions. Oh, we kind of answered it. Realistically, what would it be like to live forever? Could there ever really be a happily ever after? Or would you get bored? Or would you want to keep on living? I think no. I think in reality, in the Twilight world, yes, they will live happily ever after. But in reality, you would not.
I would try very hard not to get bored, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it'd be even worse than boredom. It would be like just despair.
I agree.
I mean, I was unemployed for a little bit because I got... It sounds unrelated, but because I got laid off. And when you don't have a job, this is like a real thing. If anyone else has ever been unemployed, you get depressed.
Yeah.
Like, you feel like you have no purpose, even though, like, oh, work sucks, blah, blah, blah. But no, guys, like, you need a job. Like, otherwise life gets very depressing. And the second I started working at that chocolate place, even though it wasn't my passion or whatever, like, life really changed. I felt much better. So I do think that, like, even if you had a job as a vampire, there'd be, like, this idleness, this, like, loss of motivation, I bet. Because really, even if your dream is to, like, make it to the top of the fashion magazine world, let's say that's your goal, you're gonna reach it someday, and then now what? Okay, you come up with another goal, but now it's like, okay, I'm gonna live so much more. That only took me like 20 years, or like, you know what I mean? It's like, it would start to get really weird.
Yeah, I agree. People say that is when their dreams come to fruition, they realize like, oh, like now what do I do? I think Jim Carrey said that in his like documentary thing, where he's like, I realized like I had all my dreams come true, and I was deeply unhappy.
Damn.
Yeah. So guys, never achieve your goals. Go after them, but don't actually achieve them.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Dang, it's like sad because you haven't reached your dreams.
Yeah.
Sad when you do.
When you do. Yeah. I mean, no, I'm sure that's not the case for everyone. I'm sure a lot of people are like, wow, I'm content, I'm at peace, I did what I wanted to do, and I'm happy.
Actually, you know the writer David Sedaris? Mm-hmm. I was listening to NPR one time, and he was on, and I actually took out my phone and recorded it, and sometimes I listen to it, but the interviewer asked him, like, is it everything you hoped it would be, you know, being a writer and everything? And he said, it's exactly what I hoped it would be.
Oh,
it is fabulous.
That's so optimistic. I like that.
He was like, you know, people expect me to say no, it's not, but it is exactly what I hoped it would be.
I love that. Because I feel like a lot of times writers, too, are like, it's miserable. Being a writer is horrible. And it's like, okay,
no, it's not.
Maybe you should do something else if you really hate it so much.
I know, it was so cute. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He also, like, picks up trash as a hobby.
That's sweet. Yeah, like, even if someone didn't need to work, I think it's still important that they have something that they're doing that gives them a purpose. Like, even if it's, like, a job where they don't need the money, or if they're volunteering.
Yeah.
In some way. Doing something.
Purpose. Justin Bieber.
Mafia. Remember, he used to always say that before songs.
No, I didn't know that.
You know, Mafia. He just was like, Mafia. It's such a middle school boy thing to do.
What does he even mean?
I don't know. It's like more than one song. Even like a song about his parents' divorce. The beginning goes, Mafia.
I'm so glad. Is that still a thing? A lot of people would have kind of like a tag, or I don't know what you call it, but in all of their songs.
Oh, yeah.
Jason Derulo. I don't like that.
DJ Khaled.
Like
he still
icon.
has that. Yeah. I don't like it either. It's like a watermark.
Yeah. It's a stain.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
This is like not a real song
Did
now.
Cardi B have that?
I don't know. Maybe is it? Cardi B. Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, DJ Khaled still has it.
Yeah.
DJ Khaled. It's like, oh.
Or Mike Will made it. Ew, I hate that.
I don't like that. Like, just make it. Put your name on the credits, but like, please don't like put your like. Artists don't really always do that. Like,
you just say, "Oh, who's this song by?" Or you look at the phone or whatever.
You should let your work stand for itself. You don't have to tell us that you made it. Like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Imagine if like every time she had a song, she was like, Taylor Swift. She was.
That'd be so annoying. What do they think though? Someone's gonna like steal their song and
and pretend it's them. So stupid. Maybe for like producers and stuff.
Still, yeah, let it speak for itself.
Yeah, or you could put a hidden gem in. Yeah. That's like your signature, but it's not your name.
Yeah. It's just like a little sound.
Yeah, it's not your literal name.
DJ Khaled. All I do is win.
I hate that.
I thought he was like such a joke when I first heard him, but then he actually turned out, he kind of still is, but he's been doing well.
Yeah, it's
weird.
I feel like I learned of who he was late in the game.
That's okay.
Like, it was like 2 years after everybody else knew who DJ Khaled was, and I was like, oh, like...
That's okay. You weren't missing much.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
I feel like I don't have anything else to contribute to this episode.
Me neither.
I feel like we've talked it all out. And I hope that we said things eloquently. Like, some of this is so heavy, so...
I know. I hope we weren't too flippant about it.
No. Yeah. It's and, like, maybe we should put, like, a warning, but, like, some of these things are so heavy and kind of scary to think about. And so, I feel like some people shouldn't listen to it if they... Well, I'll put a warning in the and maybe in the beginning of it. I feel like if anyone's listened to it and now they're freaking out about their own mortality... We're there with you.
Read Tuck Everlasting.
Yeah, read Tuck Everlasting. And try to go for a walk. And think about the beautiful life that you're going to live and how nice it is that things change and grow. And that's the beauty of life, is even when you are in the depths of despair, it can always change.
You never know what is around the corner.
No.
And if you don't know what to do next, I don't know, go to Vermont. Yeah, guys. Or if you're already in Vermont, go to Alaska.
What are you gonna do in Alaska? Wait, no, what did she say?
Oh, I don't know.
I
I'll never see you if you go to...
I'm saying I'll never see you if you go to Alaska.
University of Alaska? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I think that tomato sauce or whatever is why I'm having this thing right now in my
does not affect
throat.
You.
Yeah.
No, but all just to say, guys, is that I totally get it. Sometimes it does feel like, what? Like, there's no reason to go on. Like, I cannot picture myself ever being happy again. Sounds crazy, and I know you won't believe it, because no one ever wants to believe it, and myself included, but you actually will feel better someday.
Yeah, and I wish that's one thing that Bella could really understand, especially for the young readers reading the books who, you know, are going through so much in their own lives, because she doesn't really ever truly feel happy again in a
I know.
comfortable way.
I wish she did.
Until Edward comes back, and I wish she found that on her own first. Because it really does happen. Like, I'll be transparent here. I've had horrible times in my life where I've been so depressed. But like gradually, not all at once, but like things do get better. And like it surprises you too. It really does, because you like, even if you don't think you have it in you, or like you feel like you don't know what to do, it still can happen.
Yeah, I mean, humans are amazing. They're resilient, and you are human, and like people have been through horrible things. We've talked about this with the Oprah show.
Yeah.
But even like, you know, people, their cities were bombed, or like their whole families died, or like horrible things have happened to people, and they find a way to move on, and they're happy again. It's like, geez. And I think about that. I'm like,
me too.
Whatever I'm going through, or I feel like I can never get out of it, and like, these people, it's amazing. Like, somehow they carried on.
Yeah. So. I highly suggest you guys check out Oprah's podcast.
It's amazing.
It's spiritual, and like if that's not your thing, like I totally understand, but it's secular in a way that I think is for everybody. It makes you feel like there's so much beauty in just being a human. And also, she's had so many guests that have such inspiring stories. There's 2 people that come to mind, which it's honestly so depressing. But there's a woman named Sherry. I might look it up. There's a woman whose all her kids died. Her name is Shelley Fox. And then there's another woman who the same thing happened to her. I am forgetting what her name is.
Like Manchester by the Sea.
Oh, really? I've never seen that. I forget what her name is right now, but I think you could find it through Shelley's story. Basically, like, those 2 videos had such a profound impact on my life, and I think about it all the time because it's super depressing. But somehow, like, they've experienced the worst things that have ever been able to happen to them, and they obviously are still extremely sad about them, but their stories are so inspiring because they have found happiness, and I always think about that as like, I can too, no matter what. Because a lot of times depression things, they blind you in a way that like you cannot really see the full perspective.
Yeah, it's kind of impossible to see it, but when it does happen, you'll be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we also are not like...
Oprah was right.
Yeah, Oprah was right. We also are not like experts on this kind of stuff.
No, it's just a Twilight podcast.
So, like, I hope we said everything okay, and if we didn't, I'm sorry. But if you or someone you know is like struggling, and even just having fleeting thoughts or whatever, please tell somebody. And the best thing you can do is just say that you need help and get help.
But wouldn't you say, like, a lot of people, Twilight has helped a lot of us through hard times?
Yes. No. Like, I literally cannot... Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. Like, I wish it did some things, and I wish it did others, but Twilight has never been harmful for me, I think, because it literally, like, got me through some of the worst times of my life.
Oh.
Even this podcast, I feel like I've been down lately, and then I remember this podcast, and I feel happy.
Yeah. I know. I have to remind myself all the time. But then, yeah, when I do, I'm like, oh my gosh.
I'm like, holy shit.
It's crazy.
It, like, feels like we belong to something.
Wow. Twilight's actually pretty deep.
It's really deep. I feel like we could even go deeper.
I know.
I would like to do
what could we say that's deeper, Mel?
Well, not deeper, but an expansion is I would like to do an episode on maybe theology in Twilight and more about religious aspects. I mean, there's a whole, like, you know, Garden of Eden thing you could talk about and, you know, maybe Mormon influences.
It's true. Yeah, another time.
Another time. It'd be too much for one episode.
Actually, one more thing. Why do you think it seems like Alice, Jasper, and I mean, even kind of Emmett, I don't know. A lot of the Cullens don't seem that affected by their immortality or not bothered by it. Why do you think that is? They're just, like, so in love that they're fine?
To be honest, I feel like some of them are just not fully fleshed out enough.
Yeah.
Emmett is not dimensional enough for that.
No.
Alice is interesting because she can see when people are going to die, so she has complete control over it. Mm-hmm. Or if anything bad is going to happen, which I feel like could be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Maybe because she knows nothing else. Like, this is the only way she knows life to be.
She doesn't remember her old life.
Yeah.
Jasper, I wouldn't say necessarily that he's fine with it. He is very tortured.
You're right. He does feel like a burden, I think, to his family. And,
yeah. What about Esme?
Esme, I don't know. She seems happy that she gets to be like a mother. Mm-hmm.
But she can never be a mother. At the end of the day, like, they're just kind of playing parts.
Yeah.
She's younger than a lot of her kids. Only Edward. Right?
She's younger than Edward? Oh, you mean, okay, yes, you mean, by vampire years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's odd.
Technically, when you've lived that long, like, the few years that you have between you guys aren't really going to make a difference. Mm-mm. Kind of like Bella and Renesmee.
True.
How could you really parent someone your own age?
I know. Yeah, I also think Esme is not developed enough to.
Yeah.
We don't really know what she thinks about it. She seems just, like, happy to be there, happy to be with Carlisle, but I don't know. There's definitely a little bit of sadness still, I think, about her human life.
Yeah, I agree. Well, she lost a child as well. Mm-hmm. And so,
as she randomly brought up during the baseball game.
Yeah, we're only laughing. That's obviously sad, but the way she brought it up was awkward.
Yeah.
But imagine that pain of having lost a child, the worst thing that can ever happen to you, and then you can't even get by with the hope that you'll see them again.
Yeah.
What about the Volturi?
They seem fine
with it. I feel
thrive on it.
Yeah, exactly.
They love it.
That power over humanity
not
that
Marcus.
They have. Finally.
Yeah, Marcus wants to die.
I don't know.
He's bored.
He is bored. Yeah, he represents that boredom.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, what's the point?
That's what one becomes.
Yeah. They're just sitting around.
And he is so bored that he does not take part in orgies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, whatever.
Remember the Russian vampires?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Bulgaria? No, were they Russian? They were Russian.
Remember they definitely weren't Russian.
They weren't Russian?
I don't think they were Romanian.
Oh, Romanians. The Romanian vampires, they said that they sat for a very long time and they started to become petrified.
Sounds really boring.
I know. I wonder what they thought about. Or were they just like thinking
just
nothing?
Statues.
I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like Tuck Everlasting. You're just rocks on the side of the road.
Yeah.
That's so depressing.
Makes sense actually why all those vampires would be willing to fight for the Cullens, because they're like, I don't know what else to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. It's like, yeah, fight with lives lost. It's like
sure.
Yeah, it's like I need a little bit of excitement in my life because
this makes more sense now.
That makes so much more sense. Yeah.
I can't even believe some people chicken out and leave the fight.
I know. Jesus.
What else are you gonna do?
Yeah, they must really be not confident in their fighting abilities. Like, oh god, I'm the first to go in this.
True. Oh, cool background.
Oh, thanks. Belle and Edward having sex.
That's a bold background.
Yeah.
Actually, it's Edward's back.
Yeah, that's like the sexiest
Whoa.
thing about a guy is their back, I think. Well, this is a whole other conversation I can't get into.
It's really sexy. That candle.
I know. His hands.
Ugh.
Shit.
Ugh.
All right, guys.
Okay, that's enough.
This is a long one.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. If you want more episodes, you can find us on Patreon. We have a thing there. But also, it's new. We're trying it out. But we're not going to, like, take anything away from this podcast, so...
Yeah, don't worry.
Don't be worried. And, like, we're still going to read listener mail on here. Like, we're still going to give it everything we got. So, if you can't sign up for Patreon, it's okay. We understand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Love you guys.
I got plenty catch. But we got plenty catch.
I wish.
Find us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram at Another Bite of Twilight. Theme music is by Traces. See you next time!